What's the biggest challenge you've overcome to fulfill a promise to someone you love? When my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, the doctors gave him 6 months. He was stubborn, in denial most of the time. But one night, when it was just the two of us in the living room, he told me that before he died, he wanted to see the ocean one more time. Not the gray, cold shore we live near in Washington, but the warm, endless blue of the Pacific in Hawaii, where he'd been stationed during his Navy days. We didn't have money for something like that. My savings barely covered rent, and he was living off disability. But he asked so quietly, like it was a guilty secret, and I promised him we'd go. The moment I said it, I felt the weight of it settle in my chest. I started working double shifts at the diner where I was a server. The first few weeks, I thought maybe I could make enough just by grinding it out, but the math didn't add up. My manager offered overtime when someone called out, and I stopped saying no. I sold my car, an old Civic that still ran, and started taking the bus to work. I picked up a part-time job stocking shelves at the grocery store down the street from my apartment, going there after the dinner rush at the diner ended. The hardest part wasn't the exhaustion, it was keeping it from my dad. He'd ask how I was doing and I'd tell him I was fine, that the diner was just busier than usual. He was too proud to accept help, and if he suspected what I was doing, he would have told me to stop. By month 3, my body was running on caffeine and adrenaline, my hands ached from carrying trays, my back hurt from lifting boxes, and I was falling asleep on the bus home more often than not. There were nights I would get home after midnight, shower, and collapse into bed only to wake up 4 hours later and do it again. I kept a jar under my bed with cash from tips, and every time I dropped a folded bill inside, I could almost see that Hawaii shoreline getting closer. Then his health started declining faster than we expected. The cough got worse, the weight dropped off him, and I realized I didn't have 6 months after all. I had maybe 3 weeks before travel would be impossible. The jar wasn't full yet. I sold my TV. I sold my laptop. I sold the guitar I'd had since high school, the one he'd bought me when I was 16. Every sale felt like cutting off a piece of myself, but each time I handed something over, I pictured him standing barefoot in the sand, breathing in salt air one last time. When I finally had enough for 2 flights, I booked them without telling him. The morning we left, I woke him up and told him to pack a bag. He looked confused, then suspicious, but I shoved the tickets in his hand before he could argue. His eyes watered when he saw the destination, and he just nodded. We spent 4 days on Oahu. The first morning, we went down to the beach before sunrise. He stood there for a long time, not moving, just staring at the horizon as the sky turned orange and pink. I walked behind him, watching his shoulders rise and fall with each slow breath, and for the first time in months, he didn't look sick. He told me stories I'd never heard, about his Navy buddies, about sneaking onto the beach with a girl whose name he couldn't remember, about swimming out farther than he should have just to see how far he could go. We ate shaved ice, drank beer on the balcony of our cheap hotel, and let the ocean drown out everything else. On the last day, he asked me how I'd managed to make it happen. I lied and told him I'd gotten a holiday bonus at work. He just smiled like he didn't believe me but wasn't going to press. 2 weeks after we got back, he couldn't get out of bed. The cancer had spread too far. He passed away in his sleep less than a month later. At the funeral, my aunt pulled me aside and said my dad had called her from Hawaii, told her it was the best gift anyone had ever given him. I've never regretted the debt I went into, the exhaustion, the things I sold. That trip was the last time I saw him as himself, not the man the illness had taken over, but my dad, standing tall in the surf with the sun on his face.